Stu here from Anywhere Bicycle Repair. Today I want to show you how to do a bottom bracket on a Trek Domane. In America we call it Domane, but the Trek Domane. And this is a Shimano Hollowtech crank with a Trek specific bottom bracket. But anybody that has this crank, you can take out the same exact way. So come on, I'm going to show you how to do this. We're going to start by removing the crank. You need a 5mm Allen. On this side there's 2 pinch bolts. So we're going to take this 5mm and loosen very carefully. Some of these heads are very corroded, being that they're pretty low to the ground. They got a lot of corrosion inside of them. So you're simply gonna loosen these up. You don't have to remove them, just a couple turns full out. There's actually, that's how you tighten the crank on there. There's actually a safety. There's 2 safeties on these Shimano cranks. The first one is a little lip here. You can use like a little pick. And there's actually, it's hard to see, I'll show you once you get the crank off, but there's a little safety clip here, right there. The other one needs a tool like this, or a tool like this, essentially the same thing. It's got a star to it. This is gonna actually put it in here. This is just a plastic cap. This actually holds compression on the crank. So we're going to take this off, remove that, and now this should come out here. We just wiggle it back and forth like rocket with a little force. Let's see. There we go. So you can see the, let's see here, the pinch bolts, right? You got the pinch bolts on each side, 1 and 2. And this is your other safety pin here, right on top. So if I push it down, it's locked in. There's actually a pin in the middle. You pull it out, it'll unlock. So it's simply how that works. Now, once you have this left arm off, this crank just comes right out. So this is a Shimano Hollowtech crank, from the low end to the high end. This is how it works. 2-piece crank spindle and then your other arm. That's how that works. To do this bottom bracket overhaul, we're gonna, the procedure is that the bearings come out of the frame. Cranks come out, bearings come out, we inspect everything. So right now the one bearing already came out with the crank. These Trek frames are known because this is actually a very proprietary style that Trek did for a few years. What they did was they have a carbon shell, whereas a lot of companies, most of them out there, use a steel or actually aluminum shell to put their steel bearings in. So the problem with this carbon is it's plastic. Over time, this bearing goes in, it's actually going to wear around this and it's actually going to fall out. You want these bearings to be stiff in there. This one just fell out. So it is going to be a problem over time, and these Treks are known for it. You'll end up having to do the overhaul more often on a frame setup like this. So the one I actually just fell out. The other one we might have to punch out. Let's see. What you mean by punch is you get a big long punch, you get a hammer, you have to punch it through. Let's see how it looks so far. Let's move this bike up. Let's see a little bit. The bearing is right there, and I can't pull it out. So now I'm going to use the punch. You simply just put the punch in the opposite side, hopefully find an edge, give it a couple taps, find the other edge, give it a couple taps, there we go, it's out. So what we have is 2 bearings here. Let's stand back. Alright, we'll keep this bottom bracket up, it's kind of nice if you can see it. So what you have is 2 sealed bearings, and this is what goes bad This is your main culprit of a lot of issues. Wipe it off here. You have a seal bearing. So this is a seal bearing. They come in all shapes and sizes. They're in wheels, they're in cranks, they're in headsets. They're in a lot of machines you use. What it is there's actual spherical balls inside of here. All through there you can't see. There's this orange seal around it to protect it. And then you have an inner race that spins separately from the outer race. That's essentially a seal bearing. They're great because when they go bad, they don't mess up the external part of the bike. So if something goes bad internally here, you press this whole cartridge out, you put a new one in, it's good to go. So what we do is inspect these. These actually feel pretty good. You want to feel in your hand, see if there's any clunking or clicking or anything like that. That all is in part to debris and stuff built up in the ball bearings. They could be just simply worn from heat that way, or just miles as well. Most of these bearings are rated for thousands of RPMs. We're never going over 120 RPMs on a bike, but just static weight on these bearings cause a lot of stress. So simply, these bearings look good. We wiped them off, we wiped them down, we checked them. They feel good. We're going to throw them back in. So what we're going to do now is just check as well the bottom bracket. Just look for any markings or even any cracks in carbon. You want to inspect it. Anything you're doing with carbon, you want to clean thoroughly and look for points where carbon comes together. See if there's any stress marks of any sort. This frame looks great. So what we're going to do is just clean this inside up, get all this old grease and dirt out, and then grease it up and put it back in. So let's see here. This looks pretty good. So now we use, in San Diego, very important, different grease. We use Finish Line Premium Grease. This is a Teflon base. We like this a lot because it holds up to our climate. We have somewhat of a dry climate, but then it's very moist in the morning, but you do dry up. Everything dries up over time. So ends up seeing the oil-based greases kind of separate more. So you're stuck with the oil dissipating out, and you're stuck with that filmy stuff out of that style grease. Teflon doesn't separate as easy, it sticks together. We like this grease a lot for this type of procedure. So we got, you can simply, what you want to do is load this thing up. Gloves are good, but you can also put it on your finger. You just want to load this, turn this so you can see it. What you want to do is just load this, get that chain out of the way. You're going to load this shell up, this little shell here with grease. You want to just be, don't be stingy. You want tons of grease in here, especially in San Diego. You want that bearing to be just engulfed in grease, and then we'll wipe the extra off after. We find a lot of success with our overhauls because a lot of people have issues with creaking and clicking, especially in road bikes, and it's so quiet and beautiful when you ride your bike in San Diego that when you do have any little creak or click, it's definitely annoying. A lot of it comes from this area. So, and a lot of it comes from even if you do a bottom bracket overhaul, the essential part is putting enough grease in here. If you don't, you'll have to do that overhaul much sooner. We usually do recommend every 9 months to a year on a system like this, closer to 9 months because everything's a little more exposed. But usually once a year is a good time to do it. So I'm just cleaning off the seal here. What we're going to do is show you how to put this bottom bracket back in. What we have here is a press. This is a cool tool. This is a bearing press for all different sizes. We have a couple different ones of these. This one works for this set of bearings. It's actually all labeled. Each bearing has a number, so you actually line it up with your number. I know it's a 2437 from memory. This actually fits really nicely in here. It's all machined. It actually fits straight in here. It goes on there. The other one goes on here. 2 presses for your bearings. This is the press tool, essentially just a bolt with a nut, is basically what it is, with some handles. What we're going to do is just put this on this tool, take a spacer off here. We're going to slide it into this, let's move this bike back a little bit. What we're going to do, stick it in your bottom bracket. With the bearings on the inside, right? The bearings are here. You got your press. You slide them both sides. You put the other, your bolt through it, your nut. That's how a press works. And you just tighten this on. You just have to snug it up, especially a frame like this. It's not super tight. Some Cannondales out there actually are really tight. But a lot of the Treks here are pretty loose. So you just snug it up, and your bearings are in. That's it. Bearings are nice and in. They're blanketed with grease, and that's your press. You're done. Put this back. Stick it right here for now. All right, and we're done with the punch. Now we're going to move on to the crank. So another thing, just to clean off the seal. So this is a dirty seal right there. It's a more warm, but it's a clean seal. You can actually see some metal to that. That's how they kind of, there's dirty and clean. So you definitely clean these seals off. That's a good thing to do. So just a simple wipe down. You don't have to really go to town and get degreaser. It's just rubber. And we're going to clean the spindle off. You can see a lot of corrosion. It's fine. These are aluminum. They tend to get corrosion. It's not going to harm anything. It's rare that you see a catastrophic failure with that. So we're simply put this back on. This is your one seal, your drive side seal. On this bottom rack, doesn't matter, they're exactly the same. On a Shimano setup, they're all the same on both sides. So I'm going to give one little wipe down on the outside here to keep it nice and clean for the customer. And we're going to clean that around like that. And then we're going to slide this crank right back in. Now don't forget about the chain. Put that chain back on. Actually, just slip it around. Slide this right in there. Put your chain on a little bit. Now your other seal goes on that side. And then we'll clean the face of this off as well. This is pretty dirty. You got a little dirt working on that inside of that crank arm. So get all that dirt off. Wipe inside here, inside the hole where the spindle goes. And we got enough grease on here too, which is good. You want some grease on the spindle, it's nice. Two pieces of metal to go together, especially in San Diego. Less chance of corrosion, the two corroding on each other. So just simply put that on with your hand, push it on. What you're going to do now is, with that cap that we took off, that cap we took off with that tool, we're actually going to just screw it right down in here. And again, this is hand tight. The reason this tool is so small is because they don't want you doing it any more than hand tight. So same thing, reason with this. There's a big tool on this side to do another project with a bottom bracket, but this one is what we're using to make it tiny because they don't want you to put too much power in this. So we're just going to snug it up with our hand until it feels like it's done, and that's it. And then we're going to put that extra safety pin in. You want to actually spin the crank, see if it spins. It's a good test. This won't mean to change anything, so it should be perfect all the way through. If you put a new crank in, it may rub or something like that, so that's something else to check. We're going to put this little pin down, click it down, and then we're going to use our 5mm. We're going to tighten this back up. This is actually, we're going to snug it up and we'll use a torque wrench. This is 12 to 14 Newton meters. So we'll snug this up because it's much easier to do it with a wrench like this to get it snug. Alright, and then we're going to grab a torque wrench. We got some right here. And this is labeled. All Shimano cranks are labeled. If you forget, there's a little label here. It says 12 to 14 Newton meters. It even has a picture of a torque wrench, which is nice. Torque wrenches are expensive, but they're good to have, especially if you have a carbon bike. Lots of things you can use it for. C-posts, stems, especially cranks. Torque wrench is good. So you set this thing to, we're going to set it to 13, keep it in the middle. That's plenty tight for a crank like this. And we're going to cinch this guy up here. Torque wrench just works where you pull it and it'll click when you're done. That big click, we're done. We do the other side. We're done. Awesome. So that is how you do a bottom bracket overhaul on a Shimano crank on a Trek Domane bike. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, Facebook, Instagram, check our website for updates, and check back for more.